Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. I'm having such a good time listening to audiobooks on Audible. Look, Audible is... Yeah, that's right. I dual-wield Audible. This video is brought to you by Audible. Start listening with a 30-day Audible trial. You can choose one audiobook and you get Audible originals for free. Visit audible.com/blaze or text BLAZE to 500 500. More on them in a bit, and a great audiobook recommendation from me. By the way, that 500 500 thing will only work if you're in America, because it's better there. That's not true. Audible is amazing everywhere. Wherever you are in the globe, on the globe, in the globe, on the globe, on the globe, you're going to be able to enjoy the glory that is Audible and those Audible originals every single month. But I'm going to tell you more about them in a bit. Welcome to Business Blaze. I'm your boy with the blaze. I've got a brand new t-shirt. It says, I'm pointing at my computer. People are often like, what's Simon looking at when he looks over there? And it's like my monitor, so I can make sure that I'm in frame, that you can see the glory that is the Boy with the Blaze t-shirt. Now available in the merch store at perchthemerch.co. What happens here, if you're wondering, is there are some ad reads. But more importantly, Danny Salter writes me a script. I read it. Sam. I realize I don't even know how to pronounce Sam's surname. I think it's Avrila, but I'm not sure. Yeah, sorry, Sam. Maybe you can inform me via memes.
No, I don't think I will.
This is the worst product recalls ever. Let's jump in. There's always one smartass in the school classroom. But in the case of a 10-year-old boy called Cody... For f***'s sake. Cody Mosier? No one cares, Cody. Who attended Ticonderoga. Danny, why? You have to choose the places with the hardest names to pronounce. Where the is Ticonderoga? Elementary school. Oh, it's in New York. Thanks, Danny. I think he deserved an award for pointing out to a group of grown-ups the dangers of not thinking things through properly. Back in 1998, the Bureau of At-Risk Youths distributed stacks of anti-drug pencils to the lucky children of New York. Emblazoned on the side of each pencil was the powerful slogan, "Too cool to do drugs." Yeah, all those pencils really kept me away from drugs. It wasn't, the social support and like a functional family and, education about the danger of drugs. It was pencils. You heroes. If that doesn't keep kids away from heroin, then I'm flat out of ideas for what will. Well, Danny, I just gave you some ideas, didn't I? Simon 2020. But there was a problem with the pencils. The slogan began at the business end of the pencil and ran from left to right to the eraser end of the pencil. And it didn't take long for kids to notice that the more you sharpened and shortened the length of the pencil, the more the message seemed to take a pro-drug stance. Oh, Danny, you've left me a picture. Sam, please. After a few sharpenings, the logo would become cool to do drugs. While later sharpenings at the end of the pencil's hedonistic life would expose the short and snappy message, do drugs. Just do it! Now that's my sort of pencil. 420 Blaze. I'm sure a lot of kids had fun with this before Cody decided to write to the Bureau and point out its design flaw. Oh, Cody, you grass. You're taking away everyone's fun. I'd get a giant pack of those pencils and I'd get one of those big, the automatic pencil sharpeners, and I would just sharpen everyone down until it said cool to do drugs. And then I would distribute them. You're welcome.
Anarchy! I don't even know what that means, but I love it!
And obviously, cool to do drugs on pencils really encouraged more kids to do heroin. It made a difference. It didn't. All the pencils were immediately recalled, and Cody received a letter apology and a box of t-shirts for his class. You can't sharpen those. I'm not sure what was printed on the t-shirts, but I imagine it was something like snort coke to get good grades. That's the philosophy I live by. Woo! Not really. Ow, that was really painful. And not because I actually did drugs, just because I faked it. Wow. Allegedly. The Bureau created replacement set pencils with the same slogan and printed it in the opposite direction, which is maybe what they should have done in the first place. Yes, maybe. Maybe they were on drugs. But this video is not going to get monetized because I've already said drugs and cocaine and heroin so many times. But if you want to recreate the buzz of the late 90s, some enterprising soul now sells pencils bearing the original version of the message with pimped up psychedelic swirls and patterns. Look, guys. I don't know if Teespring will allow me to do it, but I would absolutely make a shirt that says snort coke to get good grades if there is demand for it. When bright young Cody was asked why he thought the Bureau never noticed the design flaw before distributing the pencils, he simply shrugged and said, I guess they didn't sharpen their pencils. Cody, you've got a degree, a career in comedy ahead of you with gems like that. Look, I know I can't talk, blah, 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 blah. Simon is not funny. I'm not here to be funny. I'm here to bring you important messages about business. Forget Business Insider. Business Insider is an absolutely massive channel, but I have faith in the Blaze. And when it is bigger than Business Insider, I will know that I've made it. Subscribe, tell your friends, preach the Blaze. The best way you can do that is with a t-shirt. Purchasethemerch.co. Thank you, I'll take your money. It's true that whoever thought up the idea may not have been the sharpest tool in the box, but at least the Bureau was able to carry out a relatively simple product recall and erase any evidence of the mistake. But boom, boom, erase evidence of the mistake. I sometimes miss the puns when reading this, and everyone in the comments is like, oh, Simon, you missed a pun. So what, dickhead? Here are 5 more cases of product recall in which things get far more smudged. Oh, wait, these are worst product recalls ever. Oh, so these are, Danny sometimes takes my titles so literally. I'm like, Danny, do a video about the worst product recalls ever. And so I meant products that went wrong and had to be recalled. But Danny has literally taken it to mean the companies screwing up the actual recall of the products. I love it. So specific. I probably should learn to use commas or something.
Do you speak English?
No, I don't, sorry.
To kick off the worst product recalls ever in a typical, the Chicago Tylenol murders. Oh, Danny, we've talked about this. Death isn't funny. To kick off the worst product recalls ever in typical contrary Business Blaze style, let's take a look at one of the best product recalls ever. I think we can get away with it because it was massive, involves murder, always a win, and had a huge long-term impact. Back in the summer of 1982, there was some mysterious shit going down in Chicago. Adults in the Chicago area, adults and children were dropping dead from what appeared to be potassium cyanide poison. I have to say, I'll say there, and I misread it, and I'll just say Chicago. And I wanted to correct myself because there will absolutely be someone in the comments be like, Simon, this actually happens in the Chicago suburb of so blah, blah, blah. It's not Chicago. I live there. It's not Chicago. We're not from Chicago. And it's like, bro. No one cares. Adults and children were dropping dead for what appeared to be potassium cyanide poisoning. The youngest victim was just 12 years old. Another victim's death was almost immediately followed by the fatal poisoning of his brother and sister-in-law. A total of 7 deaths by cyanide poisoning were recorded in the space of just a few days, and all in Chicago neighborhoods, not in Chicago itself. It was quickly discovered that all of the victims had recently bought bottles of extra-strength Tylenol, and the leading brand of over-the-counter painkillers at the time, and was Johnson & Johnson's best-selling product so far. There was obviously no sign of sabotage during manufacture, and no hint of foul play from Johnson & Johnson. Not murdering your target audience is lesson number 1 at business school. Although, I would just assume if I was investigating this, that's the first place I'd go, because they're like, okay, well, the product's up, you probably made a mistake. I don't think you're intentionally poisoning your customers because, business school 101, but I'd still assume that something went wrong in the manufacturing process.
But Professor Utonium accidentally added an extra ingredient to the concoction, Chemical X.
The fact that all the deaths had occurred in the same small spot led police to conclude that someone was going around the local neighborhood stores, acquiring bottles of extra-strength Tylenol, adding cyanide to the capsules, and then putting them back on the shelves. You are an insane person. I have heard of this story, and this isn't surprising news to me. It's fairly famous. You've probably heard of it, but you're an insane person. The murders inspired hundreds of copycat attacks through the 1980s, and the bad news is that the original poisoner was never brought to justice. Although New York resident James William Lewis sent a letter to Johnson & Johnson demanding $1 million ransom to stop the killings, and the Department of Justice investigators concluded that he was probably responsible for the poisonings, there was not enough evidence to charge him. Lewis has always denied carrying out the poisonings, but he did end up serving 13 years in prison anyway on extortion charges. Bloody hell. I mean, surely on that one, they're like, look, it's like Al Capone and his taxes. Look, we can't pin you for poisoning all of these people, but we're just gonna absolutely throw the book at you for extortion. 13 years. But the good guys here at Johnson & Johnson, despite the fact that they were completely blameless for these appalling crimes, they pulled off a flawless product recall which set the benchmark for how it should be done with zero pissing about. They spent over $100 million on promptly recalling all 31 million bottles of Tylenol from right across the United States, even though they were unlikely to be contaminated anywhere outside of Chicago. They also suspended all national advertising to focus on full-page notices warning customers not to use Tylenol and offered free replacements for any customer who had an existing bottle. On top of all of that, they redesigned the bottles in a bid to make them tamper-proof as possible, which in turn prompted the FDA to issue new tamper-proof seals on all over-the-counter products as an industry standard. I don't remember a time when there wasn't tamper-proof shit on this, because it's like, yeah, people are crazy. It's kind of shocking. I mean, yeah, before this happened, you just wouldn't think of it. You wouldn't be like, yeah, someone's going to poison medicine. People aren't that crazy, but they are. Wow, in this case, good guy Johnson & Johnson. I know this is business plays, and we often just blaze the shit out of companies, often following up with lots of allegedly. But wow, good guy Johnson & Johnson. You get the business blaze thumbs up today. Don't worry. I'm fairly sure, as Danny mentioned, we're going to do plenty of shit on everyone later. It would have been perfectly understandable and wildly unfair if this crisis had completely destroyed all customer faith in Johnson & Johnson products, and predictably, the share price of the company plummeted in the following months as Johnson & Johnson's market share dropped from 35% to just 8%. Oh my god, can you imagine that? It's insane the amount of power that one person can wield over a company. Just like you poison one product, and it's like, I would definitely be looking at people who sold Johnson & Johnson real short. Can you imagine if you just had a bad feeling about Johnson & Johnson, you're like a stockbroker, and you sold like, I don't know, a $5 million position in Johnson & Johnson like days before, and then its market value collapses or whatever. Or I mean, I know its market share collapsed. Is Johnson & Johnson a parent company? Isn't even publicly traded? I don't even know. But if it was the case, and if someone did short sell them, you'd be like, oh god, I'm gonna get in trouble, I did poison anyone. But it looks like you did. But thanks to the company's confident and proactive handling of the product recall, the company rebounded very shortly afterwards, and by the end of the following year, the share price had climbed higher than it had before the product recall. So as early as 1982, Johnson & Johnson led the way in showing everyone exactly how a product recall should be done, and there should be no excuses for any other company making a complete hash of this kind of thing in the future. Good. Oh my god, but are they gonna make a hash of it? I can already tell, but you're going to be able to tell in about 1 minute after I've told you about the absolute legends at Audible. And look, Business Blaze, not always the most monetizable of channels, so having sponsors on this channel is 1, awesome, and 2, please support them so I can keep blazing. I mean, look, realistically, people always say this. It's like, this is the channel I enjoy the most. I like doing this. We stand up, we have a bit of a laugh. I'm gonna blaze anyway. You guys have probably heard of Audible. Yeah, this is the thing. Audible sponsor everything. It's like, what can you say about Audible? Everyone knows what Audible is. You're gonna get a 30-day free trial with Audible. Look, does anyone not have Audible yet? Oh god, this ad read. Look, if you don't have Audible, you must be the only person watching this who doesn't have Audible, because, I mean, we've all heard about Audible. You get the free book, and then you realize, wow, I got a free book for like $10 a month. That is awesome. And I got a book that's like 23 hours long, like the entire history of the world or whatever. And you download it and you're like, well, that was a pretty good deal. And the next month rolls around and you don't cancel it because you're like, yeah, I'd like another book and another book and another book. And the great thing is, after all of those books, you're actually probably a smarter, or at least you're a more educated person. You're a more informed person. Or if you like, you know, wizards and shit, you're probably more entertained. I do like some fiction. Just nothing wizardy, please God. Okay, what am I actually supposed to tell you about? Okay, so yeah, you get a credit. You get an audiobook of any value, I said that. Plus you get these access to Audible originals, which you can't get anywhere else. You can exchange an audiobook if you don't like it. You can listen anywhere on any device. Shocking. Just go try out Audible. You can go to audible.com/blaze or text, blaze to 500 if you're in America. And by America, I mean the United States, not Brazil, not Canada, not Mexico, not all of those other countries that are technically in America. But the United States. God, what's going on? Oh, I'm supposed to recommend a book. What have I got recently? Oh, I can't remember the name of it. But the guy who wrote Black Box Thinking, he wrote another book which is called... Look, if you just look up Matthew Said, he's written some amazing books. Just get one of his. They're great. Let's get back to it. Firestone and Brimstone. I'll put a link to that book below if I remember. I might not. Rebel Ideas? Rebel Ideas. Thank you. Big brain. Fire and Brimstone. The year 1990. God, those ads go on, don't they? I'm sorry, Audible. Look. Also, another reason. Go get Audible, because then the sponsors won't ask me to edit these at all, and I do feel they're genuinely more fun to do. People seem to like them. Just go buy it, because then Audible know that it converts. Otherwise, it'll be like, hey, this video is brought to you by Audible. You can get a free Audible with an Audible on an Audible at audible.com. And no one likes that, it's boring. Support the show. The year 1906 saw the blossoming of a beautiful business relationship between the Ford Motor Company and Firestone Tire and Rubber Company, which would last for almost 100 years. The American businessman Harvey Firestone, owner of the most epic name ever. Look, I like my surname. I think Whistler's quite a cool name. Like, yeah, Whistler. But like Firestone, I'd trade. He'd forged a global tire company 6 years earlier and become good buddies with Henry Ford. Henry chose Harvey's company to supply new tires for his Model T car, which would end up becoming one of the most influential automobiles of all time. And 96 years later, the relationship between the two companies was still going strong. There was even a wedding along the way when Harvey's granddaughter married Henry Ford's grandson in 1947. But sadly, the relationship between the two companies was to break down irretrievably in the year 2000. Oh, well, it did last for like 100 years or whatever. It's not bad. It'd be like, my relationship with Audible is not going to last 100 years, I can tell you that for sure, because I'll be dead. When a disastrous product failure ended up with Ford and Firestone squabbling and blaming each other for the mess, and it was a pretty lethal mess. An investigation had been launched into a potential defect on the tires of the still relatively new Ford Explorer, an SUV which go on to retrieve legendary status in later years, but it certainly had a few teething problems. It was found that the tread of the tires tended to quickly separate and peel off, often causing the vehicle to roll over. That's what we would call a mistake. In fact, the tires were linked to no less than 271 deaths on the road and over 800 injuries in the US alone. Dude, you killed is this allegedly? I don't know if it's allegedly yet because we haven't got to the end, but I'm just gonna say allegedly. You allegedly possibly killed a lot of people, bro. With the full global figures likely to be horrifyingly higher. Although I don't know what a Ford Explorer is, so are they popular abroad? Both Ford and Firestone are alleged to have known about the defects and the tire death and the death rates for a few years without ever making the information public. Allegedly. We don't know that for a fact. People have speculated. A few design tweaks had secretly been implemented, but the problems persisted and the death toll continued to rise. By the year 2000, the federal government got involved with their own investigation as lawsuits started to fly in thick and fast. Yeah, couldn't see that one coming. It's like many people have allegedly died. And the government were just like, yeah, I guess. Let's leave it to the civil courts. Firestone announced that it was recalling 6.5 million tires, but also pointed out that the real problem seemed to be with the design of the Ford Explorer, and to be fair, they had a bit of a point. During development of the SUV, tests had revealed that the top-heavy vehicle was prone to rolling over. Engineers had recommended that the design of the front suspension should be completely modified, but the problem for Ford was that this would have been very expensive to implement. You remember as Good Guy Johnson and Johnson? This is not Good Guy Ford, is it? The board meeting. I'm sorry, Mr. Ford, but it turns out that the vehicle is very top heavy and it rolls over really easily and might kill people. It's going to be very expensive to repair, then don't repair it.
Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
So instead, Ford's makeshift solution was to advise owners to underinflate the tires. What? This technically worked and improved front-end stability, but it also reduced durability and lifespan of the tires. And more alarmingly, when an underinflated tire gets overheated, it tends to turn the rubber all gooey and makes it come apart at the treads. Firestone argued that this was the main reason for the high number of rollovers and fatalities, but Ford wasn't having any of that. Look, prima facie here. I don't know what's going to happen. I guess they're going to reach some sort of settlement, because of course it happens. And no one's going to prison. I just sense it. I just sense this isn't a prison one. This isn't a prison one. It's like, it's too, even though lots of people died, it's like there's too much blame being like, prima facie, I'm going to say, like, if Firestone makes a tire and they say inflate this to, like, I don't know, however many bars of pressure, that's how much you have to inflate it to. And if the company that sells you the car tell you to underinflate the tires, that ain't the tire's fault. Without first informing Firestone, Ford announced that it'd be recalling an additional 13 million of the defective tires at their own expense. Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, we're recalling this other company's tires at their own expense. Talk about, like, you're just doing that to cover that shit, bro. In retaliation, Firestone announced that it would be severing all ties with Ford, citing a lack of trust in their former partners of nearly a century. Mopping up this mess proved to be costly for both companies. Firestone spent about $2 billion on the tire recall and ended up closing down one of their major facilities in Decatur, Illinois? Decatur. Meanwhile, Ford informed his shareholders that the tire recall would cost the company around $3 billion, and that's not to mention the costs involved in the flurry of lawsuits, which accused both companies of knowingly selling unsafe vehicles and tires. Allegedly. The outcome of the lawsuits remains largely undisclosed, but one attorney reckons that Ford had spent about $590 million settling 1,500 cases, while Firestone was reported to have set aside $800 million to handle lawsuits. So that's roughly $1.4 billion. Some lawyer got mad rich. I'm assuming that's going to mostly be class actions, and if the lawyer takes a third... But although Ford's reputation appeared to have been damaged, they soon bounced back with a redesigned version of the Ford Explorer in 2002, which rather cleverly didn't keep rolling over all the time. Woo! Imagine if they'd just done that the first time round. Hasbro Easy Bake Ovens. Some kids' toys are designed to really fire up the imagination, like a space mission rocket ship playset or a Lone Ranger action figure, complete with mechanical rear action horse or a gay Ken doll with an earring. Sam, meme it up! Got to meme it up! And other toys seem just designed to emulate the quite mundane and boring things in life, like a toy vacuum cleaner that doesn't really suck anything up, a toy record player that only plays nursery rhymes, and a toy telephone on which you can't make any calls. Yeah, my kid has this kind of stuff. And all they rather do, I don't understand it. Like, we buy them these toys, it's like, oh look, it's a nice phone that doesn't call anyone. Oh, it's like a flute, you know, a recorder even. And they're just mostly interested in like, oh yeah, you like the thermometer that we measure your temperature with. Oh, you're more into the bag of wet wipes. I don't know, is that just me? Is that just my kid? Doesn't like toys, just likes adult shit. The Easy Bake Oven initially appeared to fall into the latter category, although to give it due credit, a kid can actually bake with it, so it's not completely useless. What? Originally released by Kenner in 1963, the toy is a purple and pink plastic oven with a small heating element. The idea is that you shove a bit of cake mix and water into a small slot at the front of the oven and wait patiently for a nice warm cake to magically pop out again. I still think I would have preferred the Space Mission rocket ship playset. Nah, I'd like the cake baking shit. That's cool. It seems really dangerous though. My kid's just gonna drool all over that. It's gonna be powered by electric, right? That doesn't sound good. Shit's gonna go down. By the turn of the millennium, around 60 million of things had been sold, long after Kenner had been eaten up and spat out by Hasbro, who continued to produce new versions of the toy. It was later even inducted into the National Toy Hall of Fame. What an honor! Maybe it probably is in that industry, and I'm just making fun of like their highest award, but who cares? Which is quite an achievement for a toy that traps the fingers of kids into front-loading doors and then frazzles them. Oh god. After Hasbro launched a new model of the Easy Bake in 2006, they received 29 reports. Dramatic! Of kids getting their fingers caught in the mechanism of the front door, which included 5 reports of serious burns. Danny, didn't the last one kill like 300 people? Allegedly. Caught in the mechanism. This prompted Hasbro to advise parents to stop kids under the age of 8 from using the toy, and they also issued a voluntary recall program which encouraged parents to send back the toy and receive a replacement model with an additional plastic gate which acted as a barrier to keep precious fingers away from the heat. But they maybe should have spent more resources on getting the message out there, because despite the good intentions of this retrofit program, it appears that not enough parents took Hasbro up on the offer. And by the following year, an additional 249 incidents were reported, including 77 burns, 16 of which were either 2nd or 3rd degree, so they're not messing around, those burns. The most shocking incident involved a 5-year-old girl who got her finger stuck in the oven and ended up having part of it amputated. Holy shit. But still, Danny, last entry, 300 people died! One girl had a little chunk of her finger cut off. I mean, it's bad. It's not the end of the world. Perhaps you can't blame Hasbro entirely for this second wave of accidents, particularly after they'd already issued warnings that 5-year-old kids shouldn't be using the toy in the first place. Don't shit up in the first place, Hasbro. Simple. Test it. But a second product recall was launched that year, which affected just under 1 million Easy Bake Ovens, and this finally seemed to do the trick. This time, customers were also given a $32 voucher to spend on other Hasbro products, which may have helped to persuade more parents to get off their asses and send the defective ovens back to the company. I imagine that many parents chose to redeem the voucher on something a little more child-friendly, like Hasbro's often overlooked My First Gas-Powered Easy Chainsaw. Look, if I got this product and it burns my kid, I would throw it away and I'd never think about it again. I'd also probably be like, Hasbro on Twitter, and then never buy anything from Hasbro again. Allegedly. Dodgy Chinese milk. There can often be severe consequences for those companies who dare to fraudulently, you dare to fraudulently sell defective products. If you're in the UK, you might get a bit of a slap on the wrist. If you're in the US, you might face a few years in prison, which could get extended to 30 years if your crime involved defrauding investors. So true. Like, anytime we make a business plays, it's like, yeah. And then in the UK or Europe or anywhere else, you know, it's like, yeah, they got a massive fine and had to do some community service and they can't have a business again. In the US, it's like, they got hung. Hanged, I believe is the correct word to use there. In Nigeria, you might end up serving 50 years in prison, which run in separate concurrent sentences that flow backwards through time, so you end up getting released before you even started your sentence. What the f is going on? Oh yeah, of course. We made the video about the dude who was like, he got sentenced to a bunch of years in prison because he stole like $200 million or something insane, and he got out after like 5 years. But in the case of the Chinese milk scandal of 2008, it ended up with the two main perpetrators lined up in front of a firing squad. Oh my god, I was joking about getting hanged. And they actually got killed. They execute people all the time in China, it seems. Like, yeah, this official, it seems he was just a little bit corrupt, so we shot him. It's like, oh my god. Look, corruption is bad. Corruption is 100% bad. Fraud is bad. All this bad. Let's not shoot people though, okay? Look, even Bernie Madoff is a bad dude. Bad dude, deserved to go to prison, doesn't deserve to get shot. Chinese authorities had discovered in 2008 that certain milk suppliers were diluting milk with a bulk filler called melamine, which, in order to give the illusion of high protein content and pass quality control testing. Often used in fertilizer and plastics, that's not good. The ingestion of melamine can lead to kidney stones, reproductive damage, and bladder cancer. That is definitely not good. And although the focus of the original investigation focused on one specific company, the Sanlu Group, it was later exposed that an additional 21 companies were topping up their milk with this poison. This means that the contaminated milk was leaking absolutely everywhere, including milks provided at school and baby formula. Dudes, come on. Why? It was reported that 300,000 babies had been made sick from the dodgy milk, and this tragically induced 6 deaths. Oh my god, this is awful. But it's also speculated that this is a conservative or downright misleading figure. What? China? Releasing misleading figures? Weird. Chinese authorities recalled millions of dollars worth of poison products and overhauled the company's entire dairy industry. But the impact on trade was devastating. After the World Health Organization declared the incident deplorable, 11 countries immediately halted all imports of Chinese dairy products. Yeah, of course you would. You'd be like, most of it up. All the plants responsible for the contamination were closed down. The director of the Administration of Quality Supervision, Inspection and Quarantine resigned in disgrace, and 19 government officials and private businessmen were sent to the slammer, with many of them facing life sentences. Okay, yeah, I mean, you killed people. Your active cheating and fraud killed people. I'd say, I don't know, life sentence, and probably means like life, like without parole. It's pretty intense. And Chinese prisons probably no, cakewalk. The two individuals with the dirtiest hands of all were revealed to be a dairy farmer called Zhang Yujin and a milk salesman by the name of Geng Jinpeng. Both were executed by firing squad in 2009. But perhaps one of the most disturbing points about this whole scandal is that the Chinese press are alleged to have known about the tainted milk much earlier than they let on. But they sat on the news for a while because they didn't want to put a downer on the 2008 Summer Olympics being held in Beijing. Oh, authoritarian governments! I don't think this is the media's fault. The media would blow the whistle. They don't give a shit about the Summer Olympics, but you know who does? The central government. Allegedly. I'm gonna get killed someday. On a positive note, China came out on top of the medal table with that year with 48 gold medals. Brilliant. I'm so happy about that. It makes up for all of the people who died. No, it doesn't. Toyota. Finally, a quick word on what turned out to be one of the biggest and costliest recalls of all time. I would imagine it's always a bit of a concern if you're driving along in your car and it suddenly accelerates wildly out of control. Yeah, boy, you bet it is. And this was a pesky problem faced by drivers of the whole range of Toyota's cars in 2009, including Lexus, Pontiac Vibe, and the Camry. There was Danny's written Toyota's cars, including the Lexus, the Camry. Aren't those sub-brands of cars? Lexus definitely is. I don't know what a Camry is, and a Pontiac that's a different car, that's a different brand. So I guess they're all owned by Toyota. I'm so confused. There was no need to worry. Toyota had this under control, unlike the type of acceleration that their cars were doing, allegedly. But there's no maybe this one's been proven and we don't have to use allegedly. Let's see. Carrying on. But there was no need to worry. They reckoned that it was just a minor problem with the pedals getting a bit stuck under the unsecured floor mats. So they recalled 3.8 million vehicles and replaced the mats with versions which were a bit less likely to make you crash into a wall at high speed. However, it turns out that wasn't the only problem. There was also a mechanical fault with the accelerator pedal, which caused it to get stuck and cause unintended acceleration. But there was no need to worry. Toyota had this under control. They recalled a further 5.3 million vehicles to fix the problem with the pedal so that the driver was a bit more in control of the acceleration of the car he was driving. As if that wasn't enough pissing about, Toyota was then forced into launching a third product recall when it was discovered that there was another issue with their hybrid anti-lock brake software. Dude, what were you doing? Were you asleep when you were making this car, guys? By 2010, the company had recalled 9 million vehicles. Oh my god. I do vaguely remember this. That's insane. Roughly the same amount of vehicles as sold by all US car makers combined. So they recalled as many cars as are bought in the US every year. That's mad. The government reports that 89 deaths may have been caused directly by the faults in the defective cars, and Toyota is still drowning in a sea of lawsuits. The actual product recalls are estimated to have cost Toyota about $3 billion, while the company also reached a $1.2 billion settlement to avoid prosecution from the Justice Department for conceding the safety problems with its vehicles. So you can just be like, yeah, I'll pay a $1.2 billion fine, just please go away. If I was Toyota, I'd be writing that check so fucking fast. But it's unclear if any of this is likely to have much of an effect on Toyota's long-term future, as today it's still the largest company in Japan by revenue and market capitalization. And that's probably something to do with Toyota's very clever marketing. I suspect that following the aftermath of its triple recall disaster, they sent out free pencils to drivers around the world emblazoned with the words, "Losers don't ever buy Toyota." Buy Toyota. You gotta sharpen it down. This has been Business Blaze, brought to you by Audible, audible.com/blaze. If you'd like to get a boy with the blaze, fine t-shirt, go to purchasethemerch.co, and thank you for watching.